Only if Greece had the support of the great powers on the one hand and a united domestic front on the other. Both of these conditions were absent. The domestic split between royalists and Venizelis was still ongoing when Greece entered into the adventure of the Greco-Turkish War in 1921-1922. The Greek armies that had invaded Anatolia in March 1921 reached the outskirts of Ankara by August. But in a counterattack, the armies of Kemal Atatürk pushed back the Greeks, and by the second week of September 1981, routed the Greek army. Under Atatürk's leadership, the emerging new Turkey dealt a crushing blow to Megali there. This defeat of the greatest is one of the greatest Greek defeats in history and became known as the Μικρασιατική Καταστροφή, Asia Minor catastrophe. In every sense of the word, Greece's Asia Minor campaign was nothing short of a folly. As a result, 1.4 million Greeks who had been living in Asia Minor were forced to leave their ancestral homes and find refuge in Greece, while in the Pontian genocide, close to 400,000 Greeks perished. The enormity of the Greek defeat in 1922 dealt a devastating blow to Megali there and traumatized Greek psyche. Megali there not only lost its messianic fervor, but Μικρασιατική Καταστροφή became a constant reminder of this wound. Consequently, Megali there was generally avoided in nationalist proclamations coming from Greece. In fact, the Greek term megaloideatismos, meaning the ideology of Megali there, became synonymous to adventurism. The magnitude of the defeat left the scars in the Greek psyche that lasted for generations. This, however, did not diminish the Greeks' will and stamina to resist and fight external aggression, as they did fighting heroically against fascist Italy and Nazi Germany during the Second World War, is what the ambassador told us before, taking the long view, remembering who we are, and remembering the eternity of Hellenism. I should mention here that when the Germans occupied Chios in early May 1941, a number of Chians left and a considerable number found refuge in the British ruled Cyprus, where they were warmly welcomed by the Greek population of the island. Among the families who found refuge in Cyprus during the Second World War is our dear friend here, Stelios Gerazounis, who has fond memories of his stay in the island as a child. The Second World War also set the stage for Allitrotismos to return. Greece fought along with the Allies, Britain and the United States, and expected that the sacrifices will be rewarded after the war. And for Cyprus, 20,000 Cypriot volunteers joined the British forces in the Middle East and North Africa, while 2,500 joined the Allied forces in Greece. As a consequence, Greeks expected that Britain would reward Greece with Cyprus and with the Dodecanese, the latter being ruled by the Italians who had been defeated. In 1948, the Dodecanese islands were united with Mother Greece, and in return, this inspired the Greek population of Cyprus to start a new round of the struggles, since Britain rejected their demand for enosis and insisted on continuing the colonial rule. And I'm finishing. Indeed, from 1950 to the mid-1950s, the enosis movement in Cyprus became a pan-Hellenic movement. This without the encouragement of the Greek government, whose priority, after all, was not Cyprus. This was so because Greece of the early 1950s was an impoverished country striving to stand on its feet. Above all, Greece was a deeply wounded country due to the scars of the Nazi occupation. And then there was a terrible civil war that left deep wounds and deeper divisions in the country. In the midst of the Cold War, Greece depended for its very survival on the United States and Britain as well. Faced with the Cypriot demand for enosis, then Minister of Public Order George Papandreou told the Cypriot delegation visiting Athens in June 1950 and asking for the Greek government's support for enosis. Papandreou stated, "Greece is breathing with two lungs, one American, one British, and cannot afford to suffer asphyxiation because of Cyprus." Yet the Cyprus issue and the enosis demand swept Greece and elicited passionate popular support, cutting across party ideologies, right, center, and left. As the British author Robert Holland put it, quote, Cyprus engendered a spirit of Hellenic solidarity in a society so recently torn apart by the civil war, unquote. Consider this. At the rallies for Enosis in Athens, where Archbishop Makarios, the Cypriot ethnos, spoke, along with the Archbishop of Athens, Spiridon, among the demonstrators were followers of EDA, the United Democratic Left. Leading the youth of these leftist students was Nikos Poulantzas, Nikos Poulantzas championing Enosis. Subsequently, Poulantzas went to Paris, where he emerged as one of the leading Marxist theoreticians of the second half of the 20th century. The point I'm trying to make is that Cypriot allitrotismos spill over into Greece, as the Enosis demand became a Hellenic demand. It is in this regard that a component of Megali Idea survived the Asia Minor catastrophe, but the Enosis of Cyprus with Greece did not materialize. And I'm really concluding, and I will argue that the core of Megali Idea, the liberation of Asia Minor Greeks, was buried under the ashes of Smyrna, Cappadocia, and the Pontian genocide, and of Khamenes Patrides, lost homelands. On the other hand, and on the same token, I will also argue that another component of Megali Idea, allitrotismos, survived not because of any deliberate policy of the Greek government. The opposite was true. Yet allitrotismos survived because outside Asia Minor, there were still compact Greek populations in northern Epirus, in Dodecanese, and in Cyprus, all under foreign rule and yearning to unite with Mother Hellas. So I will end where I started. Megali Idea represented a most potent ideology that gave shape to the modern Greek nation-state, but it was also a messianic dream that remained unfulfilled. Thank you.
Dr. Ioannidis is not only a prolific writer, αλλά και ένας συναρπαστικός ομιλητής. You know, there are certain words in Greek that are untranslatable. Συναρπαστικός. Unfortunately, he took about 35 minutes of the time, so he would not allow any questions at this point. However, and I can visualize a great deal of questions on the subject like the one he just finished. We will have about 30 minutes at the end of the symposium at 3:30, and hopefully he will still be with us so we can allow questions at that time, because I'm sure there should be a number of those. Our next speaker is someone that I've known for many years, and he has been working at an institution that's been very close to my heart, my alma mater, Drexel University. Dr. George Tsetsekos. Dr. Tsetsekos received his education in finance. Today we are talking about finances, economics, and that's an area that we will be covering through the kindness and the knowledge of Dr. Tsetsekos. He came from Philadelphia for the purpose of discussing and covering that subject. He holds a PhD in Finance, University of Tennessee, MBA in Finance, and BS in Electrical and Mechanical Engineer from the Polytechnic of Greece. He is the Dean, or was up until now, of the College of Business Administration, which is the college that I graduated from, Drexel University. He's now Dean Emeritus, and he'll be having a sabbatical for a year before he comes back to the college as a tenured professor and also as a Dean Emeritus. The College of Business Administration offers a number of subjects, innovative, in areas such as management and a focus on leadership, corporate governance, management of technology, and business analytics. He had been actually managing and working with a faculty of 120 professors and 90 staff members. We have several thousands of students from the undergraduate right through the PhD program. Prior to his appointment as a dean, he served as vice provost at the university for academic administration and worked on all aspects of strategic merger with the MCP Hanman University that was taken over by Drexel. He has done extensive research that covers broad areas of corporate finance, investments, banking, and international finance. He's published several articles, done a great deal of research on finance, corporate governance, and has been published in the Journal of Financial Economic, the Journal of Banking and Finance, and the Journal of International Business Studies. I'm very happy and privileged to say that he's a good friend. I met him before even the President Papadakis era, when he was a tenured professor at Drexel University College of Business. And when Dr. Papadakis came in, he went into the administrative aspect of the university's work. He came from Philadelphia, and he's going to speak on an interesting subject that deals with the economic conditions and the development for the last 100 years, element of economic transformation of Greece and Chios during the last century. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Chapter.
I'm very privileged to be here with you today. Let me say that I'm honored to be a member of this panel of so many distinguished individuals. But I'm very, very happy for the fact that I had the opportunity almost, I would say, 15 years ago or so, 15, 18 years ago. I've been at Drexel for almost 23 years. To have the privilege to meet Mr. Stratakis and Mara Stratakis. He mentioned that one of the areas of growth and expertise in the Law College of Business, the college that I led for more than 10 years, is corporate governance. And I want to acknowledge something that perhaps many of you are not aware of. The reason why we have developed this expertise is because Mary and Chris Stratakis endow a very important professorship, the Christopher and Mary Stratakis professorship in corporate governance and accountability. These allow me and our faculty to develop an expertise. We have invested heavily in this particular area. We have a center of excellence, and occasionally Chris is coming to participate in those discussions that involve board of directors, kind of leadership activities. And we are very privileged and very happy, especially myself, Chris, and Mary, for the investment that you made to your alma mater that gave me the opportunity as a professional to claim that I have one of the best business schools in the country, which is indeed right. And the tagline that we have is "We learn here," which is in Philadelphia, "to lead anywhere." And this shows to what Mr. Stratakis has done in his career as well. I was actually working with Chris for quite some time, and I realized that perhaps if I was a hen, I would be able to be more successful. So I hope your organization allows for an associate membership of aspiring hens. With this, the subject matter of the economic transformation of Greece and Chios is a huge. It touches upon historical issues as well that had an impact on the change in the direction of Greece and Chios. But I'll try to give you a synopsis. Actually, Chris, I was really trying to impress you, so I had a PowerPoint presentation But unfortunately, we don't have technology here. I don't want to make a point here, but in case someone of you is interested in my presentation, please give me your business card. I'll be happy to send it to you. It contains a lot of numbers, and so I will stay away from the numbers and present you some major concepts. Since the subject matter is the last 100 years for Chios and Greece, we need really to think what happened prior to 1912 to make an assessment whether or not the economic transformation that took place subsequent to 1912, it was a good or bad or whatever it is. To make an assessment of the impact of the decisions that have been made by politicians and by the people in Chios and Greece had a profound redirection of the economy in those two areas, Greece and Chios. Let me say that in the outset, what is going to come down to is that in Chios, what mattered really was the ingenuity of the people, its people, that they got involved because of experiences and because of certain historical circumstances with merchant shipping. And also, in Chios, what was important and still is important in the production of one agricultural commodity, which is mastic, mastica. For Greece, the theme is one that is repeated over a period of time under different circumstances from different perspectives, and this is public sector investments. The country never was open to an open economy kind of an environment, even though it had many, many opportunities. But what happened over a period of time before 1912 and after 1912 was a massive investment in the public sector by the government that eventually wasn't sustained to the point where we have what we observe today, a default. By the way, this is not the first default. I hope you know that this is the fourth default, debt default of Greece in its after 1821 environment. One was in 1826, where the government in 1822-23 borrowed heavily to build some ships for the continuation of independence to defeat the Ottomans, that eventually those funds never arrived in Greece and the ships never built, but the country later on rolled those over in 1840 just to default 3 years later, with the expectation, of course, the new funds to help the expansion of Greece. Nothing happened. But the most celebrated bankruptcy of Greece, if you wish, is the one with Charilaos Trikoupis back in 1893, when he said, he mentioned dystυχώς επτοχεύσαμε. So, in that particular period of time, the reason for that bankruptcy was associated with the fact that Charilaos Trikoupis undertook a very ambitious but well-funded, well-understood public sector investment program that required a lot of infrastructure projects, such as building the Corinth Isthmus Canal, building the railroads, building some roads primarily in Peloponnese, and he has the vision even to connect Rio and Rio, something that happened only recently. So the reason for that bankruptcy, the 18 Charilaos Trikoupis bankruptcy, was based on good motives. The motives were associated with the need of Greece in that period of time, given the economic developments, to really build up its public infrastructure. The money wasn't wasted. Unfortunately, the miscalculation was associated with the fact that Greece never had a very strong fiscal discipline, that is, mechanisms to absorb taxation based on which payments of those loans would have been would be feasible. The previous bankruptcies, 1826 and 1843, were associated with funds that never arrived in Greece. Upon their arrivals, a lot of resources, a large portion of those funds have been distributed to intermediaries or have been already collected ahead of time of the disbursement of funds. So different reasons for bankruptcy, and the last one that we experienced as we speak is associated with excessive investment of the government in social programs and in consumption that took place upon the entrance of Greece into the monetary union. Very quickly, what happened just up to 1912? This is the beginning of our discussions. What happened? First of all, there were so many episodes, if you wish, for Greece before 1921. We had a monetary chaos. Greece led some kind of growth and economic expansion based on agricultural production, given the redistribution of land after 1821, that allow a lot of people to get involved with cultivation of land. But eventually, the country was not able to develop a very good fiscal infrastructure, a disciplined way in which you invest for public goods, but at the same time you collect funds. Greece had transitioned from a border-based economy to what I call production-oriented economy, and the National Bank of Greece, not the Bank of Greece, but the National Bank of Greece, was established only in 1841 and had the authority to issue a paper, that is, issue the currency, when in fact the currency had not denomination on, was not backed up, if you wish, by gold or any particular reserves. If we take the opposite, if we take the same period of time up to 1912 and see what happened to Chios, there were three important episodes, I think, the history of Chios that shape up its economic development. One, the unfortunate event of the Turkish massacre of 1822, everybody knows about that. The second was the 1850 natural disaster, the freeze that eliminated for a long period of time to come the production of citrus and other particular commodities, and the 1881 earthquake that had devastating consequences in terms of the population. Just to get the perspective, those three episodes really wiped out the population of Chios, a prosperous, a very dominant in terms of trade island in the Eastern Mediterranean, an island that had great privileges from the Ottomans and was able to manage its own resources and invest in its own people. The population decline was very close to 40–45%. This is stated historical facts, well documented. When, if you consider the loss of population for increase in the Second World War, it was only 8%. So 40–45% compared to 8%, it's a big, big difference that impacts economic development, consumption, and other activities. Chios, after those three episodes, experienced substantial decline, and even though there were, in terms of the economic activities, even though there were substantial efforts in rebuilding its infrastructure, never really achieved the prosperity level and the thriving environment that they experienced prior to 1822. And it's not a secret that Chians never wanted to, no, never, I mean, they were not really motivated enough to join the revolution, the Greek Revolution. And they tried, because they had the opportunity, I think, to be involved in trade, and also they had infiltrated the Sultan, and a lot of people, they were located in Fanari, and they had a lot of good contacts. So this was the environment. On one hand, you have Greece in 1912, up to 1912, that never had a good monetary, what we call monetary discipline or fiscal discipline, with the exception of the years of Harilaos Trikoupis, where major positive infrastructure developments took place, but the country went through a default, a very celebrated default, where Chios really move towards a stable environment, not, however, the environment of economic growth and prosperity that faced prior to 1822. So we get to 1912 to 2012, Greece faced wars. The Asia Minor tragedy impacted substantially Greece because a lot of people came back, and impacted also Chios. A lot of people went through Chios to arrive in Greece, but oversupplying the population with not great opportunities for employment created a huge unemployment problem, and a problem that wasn't easily resolved because then after that Greece went through the Second World War, a period of time that was tragic for the country, with one bright exception: the gold reserves, whatever they were at that period of time, were able to be transported to London, and at least they were saved until the end of the civil war in Greece. For Chios, it is estimated approximately 7,000 people from Smyrna area primarily relocated and stayed in Chios, but those individuals got mostly involved with agricultural activities, and only a few went through shipping or became merchants. I'm going very quickly to say that in 1930s was another milestone in a negative sense for Greece. We had a major crisis here in the United States, but surprisingly enough, Greece did not suffer as much, and the reason for that is because it had import restrictions, low labor expenses, especially because we had individuals that they came after the Smyrna catastrophe, and generated increased consumption within the country that allowed it at least to avoid a major disaster. And this is another big thing in the Greek economy. When the global economy faces a major crisis, the Greek economy is impacted, but the sensitivity, that is the extent to which is impacted, is much less compared to whatever the global economy is impacted. After the Second World War, the bad news were associated with a huge hyperinflation, 200% increase in prices on a monthly basis, and the production really was of major commodities experienced discontinuities, as many of the commodities produced in Greece were transferred back to Germany for the war, the German war. And the bright spot in an era that Greece experienced civil war, the only thing was the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan that allowed Greece to start working on revitalizing its economy. And subsequent to that, the most important period of time that I personally consider to be the one that put the basic foundation for Greece to develop its economy was the era of the 50s, 1950s. This is a period of time where Greece continues investing in the infrastructure, took a very serious devaluation of its currency, provided incentives for people to find work, and it was the Marquesinis at that period of time that devalued the currency from 15 drachmas to $1 to 30. I don't know if some of you remember. It was really a very heroic kind of activity because it was difficult to have an impact on the trade flows of Greece, but apparently it worked out rather well. We observed during this period of time a labor productivity. Labor became more productive, wages adjusted for productivity were moving up. Large public sector investments took place during this period of time, and substantial expansion and growth took place up to 1964-65, then a small transition in the political scenery, and then the dictatorship that continue again on the good path of growth for Greece albeit with a loss of freedoms. But what was in that period of time very obvious is that we did not have prosperity, the great prosperity that we observed in late 50s, I would say. But you know, the economy, it wasn't that bad until the end period, until 72, 73, where the economy was overheated. What happened is they expanded a lot of credit to the economy. They wanted to finance even businesses that were not very good, or projects for the government that were not very good. And as a result, you know, the economy went to the other side with unemployment, high interest rates, and huge inflation that stayed for quite some time at the level of 17% over this period of time. So we move forward, and I can tell you the other big piece of good news for Greece was what we call the convergence program for Greece to enter to the European Union in 2000. So just before 2000, for 5 years or so, this was a great period for Greece to revitalize its infrastructure, its institutions, the public sector. Greece received during this period of time almost 4% per year increases on GDP based on transfers, what we call structural transfer of funds from the European Union in order to revitalize and energize its industries. Many of these funds were wasted, we know that, exposed, and we know that they impacted minimally the openness of the economy. In 2001, Greece became a member of the European Union with one single currency, as all of us know, but then, at this period of time, the benefits of being in the monetary union were obvious for Greece, where Greece absorbed huge funds as debt to expand, presumably, its infrastructure to generate good investment opportunities for the country that eventually would generate profitability and support for the economy. What happened during this period of time? Two things, very, very important. Wages were adjusted based on the government's desires or automatically for inflation. Productivity went down substantially. So Greece wasn't a very attractive labor force, very expensive. And the second thing that happened was a lot of investments were geared towards social programs, that they do not generate substantial returns in the short term. So it wasn't a good balance between programs to support the private sector and programs to support the society. As a result, this huge debt accumulation resulted to having a large portion of the GDP, of the well-being of the country, to be associated with accumulated debt. And we know what happened in 2009, where Greece sought assistance from the European Union, the Troika, IMF, and ECB, received the first package of $110 million, billion euros. We expect, with expectation to stabilize its economy. Nothing worked because major reforms that they needed to take place did not work within a time frame. A second package was supported again to give another opportunity for Greece to revitalize its finances. In 2011, another 108 billion euros. And here we are this year with a prospect of defaulting. And after having a haircut on the debt that Greece owes to the private sector investors, we don't know to what extent the country of Greece has the ability to balance its resources. So, a lot of theories why this happened. My simple theory is that if you look on Greece over a long historical period of time, you will find out three things. All of them, they start with D, the three dimensions of the Greek problem. Number one, a lot of debt to finance expansion, always. This was constant. 1912 and after 19, a lot of debt. Number two, deficits, another D. That is, a lot of deficits run by the government. The government borrows funds as a state, but it doesn't have the ability to have a good fiscal balance. So accumulated deficits for the government, and the third D is the development model of Greece. We really have no idea what is the development program for Greece. It started as an infrastructure development program back in Chariliaos Trikoupis. It was continued later on with a golden era of 1950s, but it has been transformed after 2000, actually just before the 2000 era, as a program of low unemployment. Why am I saying that? Because all the borrowed funds, my time is off, all those kind of programs really help the government to employ hundreds and thousands of people, to the point right now, almost 1 million people depend on the government, directly or indirectly,